Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is by Noodlers, and as I tried to capture on the camera, I used a good half of the bottle. Give him that. Dragon's Napalm. Yeah, it's an absolutely unusual ink, but it's fascinating. This is one of the first Noodlers inks I was ever given, and I really like it, but at the same time, it's the exact color that I usually don't enjoy, but there's just something about it. So, anyways, it's like a neon coral. All the tests were done in this Parker Vector with a fine nib, and in this Nemosine or Nemosine 0.6 stub. And I picked both of these because they're both fairly dry writers, and I have been making more of an effort to not use my gushy pens, and I don't always succeed, but this time I did. Now, there is something kind of interesting about this ink that I'm going to try and capture on camera. I don't know if it's going to work, but... You see that band up at the top? See how that glows? Yeah, it's pretty much the only fancy feature of this Noodlers ink. It glows under some UV lights. It's not water resistant, it's not, you know, bulletproof or bomb proof or whatever. It's, but yeah, I mean, let's look at this coral color. It's pink, but then it goes up into this, like, closer to an orange, and then this bright yellow. I mean, this is already extremely bright even when it's not under the black light. So, yeah, not a lot of water resistance, but that's probably not what you're buying this for. Top down in density, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. Now, despite these being smaller nibs and fairly drier writers, I was surprised by how long this took to dry, but I feel like I should say that it was a little humid the day that I wrote this, so that might have affected the dry time. So, anyways, as I say here, it's a very vibrant color. It's a pink, but where it shades, it sort of starts to come into almost like an orangey tone. But yeah, it's not great at resisting water. That's pretty gone. No bleed, really no echo. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where again, the dry times took longer than expected, but that could have been the weather, because that is something that I feel like people don't discuss enough, that the weather actually does affect how ink evaporates and dries. But anyways, as you might be able to see, especially when I sort of tilt this against the light a little bit, there's nice shading. It's subtle, but it's there. Yeah, there's no bleed feather spread. That's mostly gone. I mean, if you had to, you could recover it, but it's mostly gone. And I really scrubbed it there. I think that's the stub. Yeah, that is the stub. So I think maybe I just sort of scratched through the top layer of the paper. And then water test, it starts to come through. Next is Tomoe River Paper, where I feel like it got very pink. And it looks so bright on here. And again, it took a long time to dry, but yeah. I said the sheen smears, which I kind of experienced mostly in the dots, but anyways, not the best water test ever. That's mostly gone. It's very faint. Again, I sort of tried to lay it on so thick that it came through the paper. Next is the newest type of 20-pound copier paper, where it took 5.5 and 6.5 seconds to dry. and I was really excited that there was almost no bleeding. But there was some mild feathering. Like you can sort of see, it's not overwhelming, it's very subtle. But yeah, the stub had trouble keeping up with the absorbency of the paper. That, I mean, it's darker than the rest that we've seen, but it's also a little patchy, a little spready, a little explodey. Really not much bleed through. Come on, camera. Yeah. And here we start to see that vibrant yellow sort of starting to come through, and some of that orange, which I thought was interesting, which also glows under the black light. And here's Mead Notebook Paper, where it took 3 seconds to dry. And it's a very vibrant pink. I feel like my camera's doing weird things right now, but yeah, it's a very bright pink. It's, yeah, actually I was kind of impressed with how it did on this paper. Again, water test isn't great. It exploded, it feathered, it started to change colors on the back. But I feel like considering this is Mead, this could have been a lot worse. And actually I found that the stub did better than the fine, so. But it is a very small stub, so. Last is Moleskine Notebook Paper, where I cannot explain why it took this long to dry. I really can't. I mean, the humidity might have been a factor, but it doesn't explain everything. As I say here, you can still see a bit of shading with the stub, but it also, as you can see, was struggling to keep up with the absorbency of the paper. Like it had some skips and some near skips. Yeah, there's less bleed with the stub, which is what most of this was written with. And there's a bit of feathering and a bit of spread, but it's not obscene. That's mostly gone. There is some exploding and some feathering. Yeah, it could be worse, but you see with the stub, it did a bit better. So, anyways, there you go for your consideration. Noodler's Dragon's Napalm. It's a very unusual ink, and I really, really like it, even though generally this color is not my bag. I find it to be pretty well behaved in pens. I think it's fascinating. It's definitely eye-catching. It's still in there, actually. But yeah, it's it may not be water resistant, and it may not be the most well-behaved ink, but it's one of those inks that I highly recommend you at least try. So, for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. Bye.